What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Smart TV. Have you ever found yourself in an exam and then all of a sudden you've got a mental blank? Like you've just hit a wall and you can't remember anything, you're overwhelmed and you're starting to get anxious. It happens to the best of us, and so in this video what you're going to learn is you're going to learn how to deal with it in the exam so that you actually can come back into focus and put some stuff on the paper to still maximize your marks despite the mental blank. So let's find out just how you can do this. So if you're stuck with a mental blank in the exam, pushing yourself to try to force your way through that mental blank is not going to work. In fact, it's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to make it even harder for you to get over it. So the first thing that I just want you to be mindful of when you find yourself in an exam with a mental blank is to accept it. Right? To accept it and acknowledge that you've got the mental blank and that you're going to need to take 5 minutes out of time. If you try to push through, what inevitably happens is you don't, and you get more overwhelmed, and then the entire exam is written off. So the better approach is just to recognize, you know what, 5 minutes out, if I take 5 minutes, which is not a lot of time, to just bring myself back, to refocus, to calm myself down, then I'll be able to go back into the paper and actually do it again and get marks for the rest of the paper. So the first thing I want you to be mindful is if you do get stuck in the exam, don't try to push through. Just recognize, hey, give yourself 5 minutes, give yourself permission to take 5 minutes to refocus. So that's the first really important thing. Now once you're doing that, what I want you to do, the first critical thing I want you to do is I want you to be able to actually close your eyes, and I want you to do a little bit of meditation. Now you might not meditate, that's okay, it's gonna be super simple. What I want you to do is literally pretend you're in the exam, and I want you to just close your eyes, and I want you to just start observing your breath. And I want you to count 3 on the inhale, and then count 3 on the exhale. So for example, right, so I just simply counted 1, 2, 3 in my head, 1, 2, 3 out, and I was just focusing on my breath. Now, what that's gonna do is it's gonna get you breathing a little more deeply. Right, and what I want you to do is I want you to do that, and I want you to take 10 breaths, right? That's 10 in and out, so it's 20 breaths in total, right? 1 breath is the in and the out. And what that's going to do is a whole lot of studies show that, breathing is going to help regulate your sympathetic nervous system, which is the thing that helps you basically better control, your anxiety and your stress, right? It's going to help you bring your heartbeat down. It's going to help lower the stress, and that's important because when you are stressed, you can't think. It's literally shutting down and reducing your ability to think with your prefrontal cortex, which is, the part in the front of your brain where you do your thinking. In fact, it also shows that when you get stressed and anxious, your IQ and cognitive performance drops by 30%. It's why you're having that mental blank. So really critically, you've just got to be able to get in there and count those breaths. Really simple. That's the first thing that you can do. Now, the second thing that you can do here is also, if you have, right, pick up your water bottle, right, and just get a little bit of water, right? What that can do is it can just refresh and rehydrate you a little bit, and it can be a little bit of a pattern interrupt to try to just snap you out of the sort of headspace that you're in. So the first critical things that you should do if you've got a mental blank in your exam. So the third thing that you can do if you find yourself in an exam and you've got a mental blank, something really simple, which I've forgotten. So the third thing you can do is if you find yourself in an exam and the mental blank hits you, is something really simple, and it's to identify what your self-talk is. Now, your self-talk is a little voice in your head and what it's telling you. So if you find yourself sitting in that exam and your self-talk, that little voice is telling you, you don't know anything, you're stupid, you're gonna fail this test now, aren't you an idiot? The truth is that little voice is not being supportive and encouraging and not constructive. That's not going to help you push through and overcome the mental blank. So what you need to think about is what's more constructive and useful voice and self-talk that you can use in that moment. So it may be saying, hey, I'm stuck right now, but I'm going to push through it. I'm going to get over it. Or I do know what I'm talking about here. I've done lots of study. I've done the work. So it's just to think about when you're in that moment, what is your self-talk, and observe it. And that's where, in the prior step, when you're sort of meditating and you're breathing and you're focusing, it'll give you an opportunity to have that self-awareness about what your self-talk is. and how it's either, contributing to that mental blank or how it's supporting you actually overcome it so that you can make the most of that exam situation. Now, the fourth thing that you can do is a really, really simple thing, and it's once you've sort of identified the self-talk, you've done the meditation, the breathing, you've had the drink of water, is to actually pick up the paper again and just flick through it, right? Flick through the paper and just find something that you do remember and you do know. It can be really dangerous to try to force yourself to go back to that question that you were on in that part of the paper, because that's where you got stuck, right? So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a trigger point to break through the block so that all of that memory starts opening up for you again. And so the simplest thing you can do is just flick through your paper and find something that just connects, that you go, oh, I actually remember that, and then dive in there, because that's going to help you then start relaxing again and then opening up your ability to actually think clearly about what you need to do in the exam. So that's the fourth thing that you can do if you get stuck with a mental blank in an exam. It's to, flip through the paper and find something that you do remember to trigger your memory and to give you some more confidence. The final critical thing that you should do if you get a mental blank in an exam is to already have a plan of how you're going to handle it before it happens. Right, because that way you're going to feel more confident when it does. So what I want you to do now is I want you to, at the end of this video, get a pen and paper, and I want you to just write down what are the steps that you will take if in an exam you get a mental blank. Right, just write them down. Step 1, 2, 3. Right, remember, take 5 minutes, give yourself that awareness was the first step we talked about. Breathe, right, so you can actually better regulate your sympathetic nervous system and turn your prefrontal cortex back on. Get some water, hydrate, check your self-talk, flick through the paper to find something that you do know. They're the steps that I'd recommend, but I want you to write down what your plan is going to be. So if you get stuck, you have it so that you can refer to. So simple. So if you have any other questions about what to do if you get a mental blank in an exam, what I'd love you to do is I'd love you to leave them in the comments below. Super simple. I'd love to help you on your journey. And of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We do videos every single week, and so I will see you next week.